In a lab, a mysterious green fluid is injected into an egg yolk. Within seconds, an identical copy of the yolk forms. Meanwhile, on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the legendary actress Elizabeth finally receives her star. Fans gather around the star to show their admiration. But as time goes on, people stop noticing it. Now in her middle age, Elizabeth struggles to get job offers and ends up hosting an aerobics show. One day, she finds the women's bathroom out of order and has to use the men's. While inside a stall, the network president, Harvey, walks in. Without interrupting his phone call, he uses the urinal while complaining about Elizabeth's age and how the show needs someone younger and fresher. After he leaves, Elizabeth steps out of the stall and stares at herself in the mirror, processing what she just overheard. Later, during lunch, Harvey fires Elizabeth. On her way home, Elizabeth is distracted by seeing her billboard being taken down. Suddenly, her car is hit by another vehicle in a serious crash. At the hospital, the doctor tells Elizabeth she doesn't have a single scratch and can go home. After the doctor leaves, a nurse enters, saying one more exam is needed. While examining her spine, the nurse mutters that she's the perfect candidate and hands her jacket back before letting her leave. Outside, Elizabeth finds a small package left in her jacket pocket. Inside is a flash drive labeled The Substance, along with a phone number and a note saying, "It changed my life." At home, Elizabeth watches the video on the flash drive. It advertises The Substance, which offers the user the chance to live as a younger, improved version of themselves, switching between their young and old bodies every 7 days. Thinking it's a scam, Elizabeth throws the flash drive in the trash. That night, she goes to a bar and drinks alone. She quickly returns home, only to get sick from the alcohol since her body can't handle it like it used to. Frustrated, she throws a snow globe at a framed poster of her younger self. After cooling off, she retrieves the flash drive from the trash and calls the number on the note. A mysterious voice answers, asks for her address, and gives her another one in return before hanging up. The next morning, Elizabeth is even more upset to see an ad in the newspaper calling for a casting to find the next Elizabeth. After tossing the newspaper away, Elizabeth checks her mail and finds a black envelope containing only a card with the number 503. Following the address she was given, she arrives at a shady alley. She uses the card to unlock a door that opens halfway, leading to a dimly lit corridor. Eventually, she reaches a room filled with deposit boxes. She finds box 503, opens it, and retrieves a cardboard box inside. Back at home, Elizabeth finally opens the box to find a kit containing the substance. The kit includes an activator, a stabilizer, a switch, and special food packs. The instructions explain she must activate it once, stabilize daily, switch bodies every 7 days without exception, and remember she's still one person. After examining herself in the bathroom mirror, Elizabeth injects herself with the green liquid. For a few seconds, nothing happens. Then she's overcome with intense pain and collapses on the floor. Her body writhes as her pupils duplicate, and strange bulges move along her back. A large slit opens in her body, and an entirely new human emerges. Checking the mirror, Elizabeth realizes she's now inside a younger version of herself. The new body seals up the slit in the old body and feeds it using the special food packs from the kit. The next morning, the younger Elizabeth hears a screeching noise and notices her nose is bleeding. She remembers she needs to stabilize daily. Using the kit, she extracts spine fluid from the older body and injects it into herself. The bleeding and noise stop immediately. Afterward, the younger Elizabeth buys new clothes and goes to an audition, introducing herself as Sue. Harvey is impressed by her beauty and talent, hiring her on the spot. However, Sue insists on one condition. She can only work every other week because she has to care for her sick mother. Eager to have Sue on his show, Harvey agrees. Over the next week, Sue enjoys being the center of attention again. She gets a new billboard featuring her face and ensures she stabilizes her body daily. However, she leaves Elizabeth's older body lying on the bathroom floor untouched. At the end of the week, Sue uses the change kit to reconnect both bodies, initiating a blood exchange. She passes out and Elizabeth reawakens, now back in her original body. She immediately feels the familiar pain in her back from the scar. Her week as Elizabeth is dull and uneventful, making her long to be Sue again. She continues to stabilize the older body daily. When it's time for a refill, another black envelope arrives, prompting another visit to the shady alley to pick up more supplies. When Sue returns the following week, she finds a hollow spot in the bathroom wall and starts breaking it down to build a hideout for Elizabeth's body. She spends hours working on it, and at one point, a neighbor knocks on her door to complain about the noise. However, he calms down the moment he sees Sue. Once the secret room is finished, Sue hides Elizabeth's body and her large poster inside. Now she feels ready to live her new life to the fullest. Hosting her show on TV, Sue becomes adored by the public for her stunning looks. At night, she parties with young people and even brings a guy home for some fun. Their night is interrupted when Sue starts hearing the familiar screeching noise and notices her nose bleeding, signaling that her time is up. Panicking, she runs to the bathroom, opens the secret room, and finds Elizabeth's body writhing as it finishes the last food food pack. Wanting to get back to the guy, Sue decides to break the rules. Instead of switching bodies, she recycles a stabilizer tube, extracts more fluid from Elizabeth's spine, and injects it into herself. Feeling better instantly, she returns to her guest, and they continue their night together. Later, Sue dreams that as her clothes are unzipped, a gush of organs and blood pours out of her body. She wakes up startled and immediately completes the body exchange. In the morning, Elizabeth wakes up to a messy apartment and a note from Sue's guest, saying he'll return later for his bike. Elizabeth notices that the extra hours Sue spent in the younger body have taken a toll. Part of her hand now looks much older. She tries washing it off, but nothing changes. Elizabeth calls the number from the flash drive, but the voice on the other end tells her there's no way to reverse it. When Elizabeth tries blaming Sue, the voice reminds her that Sue isn't a separate person. She is Sue. Frustrated, Elizabeth cleans the apartment while watching Sue on TV. Seeing the beauty of her younger self irritates her. Elizabeth goes to the alley to pick up her refill box. While there, she hears a sound that seems to whisper the word Sue. Terrified, she grabs the box and runs away. Outside her apartment, she bumps into the guy from last night, who angrily reminds her he came back for his bike. He yells at her before leaving, another painful reminder of how people view her in her older body. Feeling the need to boost her self-esteem, Elizabeth calls Fred and agrees to a date. She puts on her best clothes, but when it comes to her makeup, she copies Sue's style. On her way out, she sees the billboard with Sue's picture, which makes her feel insecure about her appearance again. She grabs some accessories and adjusts her makeup to better fit her age. However, the sight of the billboard continues to haunt her. Once more, Elizabeth retreats to the bathroom, where she has a breakdown while messing up her makeup and hair. In the end, she cancels the date and ignores Fred's texts. The following week, while Sue is taping her show, she panics when she feels a bulge forming on her rear. She quickly checks, but doesn't see anything there. When the team replays the footage on the big screen, Sue feels completely exposed and rushes to her dressing room. In the mirror, Sue sees the bulge again and starts pushing it through her body until it moves to her stomach. She reaches through her belly button and pulls it out, realizing it's a chicken leg. The next time Elizabeth returns to her body after the switch, Sue finds leftover food lying around, evidence of Elizabeth binge eating to cope with her depression. Sue calls the number from the kit to complain, arguing that she barely has time to enjoy herself because of work while Elizabeth spends her days eating and watching TV. The voice on the other end calmly reminds her, there's no she and you. At work, Sue is shocked to learn her show's taping has been canceled and becomes anxious when she's summoned to Harvey's office. Harvey tells her she's become so popular that they want her to host a New Year's Eve special. Overjoyed, Sue accepts and heads home, immediately extracting more fluid from Elizabeth's spine, justifying it as a chance she can't miss. Sue's career continues to soar, and she begins taking fluid from Elizabeth more frequently to maintain her energy. As a result, the hole on Elizabeth's back becomes infected, turning green and disgusting. When Elizabeth finally returns to her body, she's horrified. Her body has aged dramatically. Her legs are frail, and she can barely move. She screams at the sight of what she's become. Elizabeth calls the number to complain about Sue again, but this time the voice offers to cancel the experience entirely, meaning Sue wouldn't return. Remembering the success Sue has achieved in her new career, Elizabeth declines the offer, scolding herself for forgetting that she and Sue are the same person. On the final night before the switch, Elizabeth tries to get up from her chair, but her leg won't move on its own, forcing her to adjust it manually, which causes her great pain. She grabs a recipe book and starts cooking large amounts of food while listening to Sue being interviewed on TV. During the interview, Sue mocks the old show and Elizabeth, which enrages Elizabeth. In her anger, she starts throwing food at the TV, feeling as though the billboard is mocking her too. Elizabeth throws eggs at the window and covers it with newspaper. Before the body switch, Elizabeth yells at herself in the mirror, begging Sue to keep things under control. When Sue wakes up, she finds the apartment in a filthy state and begins insulting Elizabeth for the mess. Fueled by revenge, Sue takes several needles of spine fluid to avoid switching bodies again. 3 months pass, and Sue is still in control. Ads for her New Year's Eve show dominate the TV and billboards around the city. Sue brings another man home, but asks him to wait while she goes to the bathroom. The hidden room is now overflowing with trash, but Sue continues extracting fluid from Elizabeth's body without cleaning up. The injection wound on Elizabeth is severely infected, and the fluid coming out is dark and necrotic. Feeling dizzy, Sue calls the number and explains she's run out of stabilizer fluid. The voice calmly explains that she has drained all of it, and that the fluid needs time to regenerate, which can only happen if she switches bodies. Sue panics and refuses to switch, especially with her big show the next day. However, her nose starts bleeding, and she collapses from the strain. Sue has no choice but to crawl back to the bathroom and perform the body switch. In the bedroom, the man hears strange noises and goes to investigate, but Elizabeth locks the bathroom door before he can see her. Ignoring his questions, Elizabeth looks in the mirror and is horrified to see herself as a grotesque abomination. condition. Furious, she yells at the man to leave. Afterward, Elizabeth exits the bathroom, struggling to walk in her deteriorated body. She falls repeatedly, but eventually makes it to the living room, where she calls the number and chooses to cancel the experience. Then, she retrieves her old poster from the hidden room. The next morning, a black envelope arrives, informing her that the final delivery is in the box. Covering herself in as many layers of clothing as possible, Elizabeth rushes to the alley, retrieves the box, and brings it home. Inside, she finds a single syringe filled with a black liquid. Suddenly, a voice warns her that there's no going back. Ignoring it, Elizabeth injects the dark fluid into Sue's body. Elizabeth remembers that tonight is Sue's big show and stops herself from fully injecting the termination syringe. Instead, she starts giving Sue CPR, causing her own nose to bleed. Taking it as a sign, Elizabeth grabs the change kit and transfers some of her blood to Sue, which wakes her up. Strangely, Elizabeth doesn't fall asleep after the exchange. The two women stare at each other in shock until Sue notices the termination syringe on the floor. Panicking, Sue freaks out and attacks Elizabeth, kicking her into her large poster and then shoving her against broken glass in an attempt to choke her. Desperate, Elizabeth grabs a vase and smashes it over Sue's head before running to the bathroom. Sue chases after her, and when Elizabeth locks the door, Sue kicks it repeatedly until it bursts open. She kicks Elizabeth again and forces her to look at them both in the mirror before smashing Elizabeth's head against it multiple times. After dropping Elizabeth's body, Sue watches her crawl away but quickly sends her flying again with another kick. This time, Sue doesn't stop. She continues kicking Elizabeth for several minutes until she's finally dead. Standing there covered in blood, Sue realizes what she's done and breaks down crying, but she soon remembers her show and regains her focus. That night, Sue arrives at the TV station and sits in the makeup chair, but she starts coughing and hears the screeching sound again. Rushing to the bathroom, she spits into the sink and notices one of her teeth has fallen out. Testing her body further, she pulls out 2 more teeth, which come out easily, leaving her spitting blood. After cleaning herself up, Sue meets with Harvey and the shareholders, managing a closed-mouth smile to hide her condition. When she gets into the elevator, she notices her nails are peeling off, and to her horror, one of her ears falls into her lap. Trying to stay composed, she covers the hole in her head with her hand as another man enters the elevator. Once he leaves, Sue bolts out through the back door and rushes home. Sue searches for the activator that was meant to be used only once. Hoping to create a fresh, beautiful new body, she injects herself with the green liquid. Immediately, she collapses in pain as her back splits open. When the process is over, Sue checks her reflection in the mirror and is horrified to see that her new body is a grotesque, deformed creature with Elizabeth's face embedded on her back. She has now become Monster Eliza Sue. After vomiting the green liquid, Monster Eliza Sue puts on her show dress and jewelry, curling the few strands of hair she has left. Feeling unsatisfied with her appearance, she destroys the old poster and makes a mask out of it, gluing it to her face and adding lipstick. With her disguise complete, she heads to the TV station. She imagines everyone greeting her with praise and admiration, but this turns out to be a delusion. With the stage lights still off, Monster Eliza Sue sneaks onto the main platform unnoticed. When the show begins and the lights come on, Eliza Sue steps forward and tries to speak into the microphone, but only distorted mumbles come out of her deformed mouth. At that moment, the mask she made falls off, and she begins vomiting body parts, horrifying everyone in the audience. A woman screams, and a man calls her a monster, which causes the entire crowd to panic. A group of men surrounds Eliza Sue, shoving her around while yelling insults like monster and freak. She collapses to the floor, crying and desperately trying to speak, but no words come out. When she tries to stand, a man strikes her with a baseball bat, decapitating her. However, her head slowly regenerates while one of her arms falls off, causing a spray of blood to gush out and shower the crowd for several minutes. The entire room becomes drenched in blood, leaving people slipping and falling over each other in the chaos. Amid the confusion, Eliza Sue manages to escape the building. As she runs down the street, her body suddenly bursts into thousands of gory pieces. From the pile of remains, Elizabeth's face crawls out and drags itself toward her Hollywood star. Once on the star, Elizabeth's face stands proudly, recalling the glory of her past. But as the memory fades, she melts away completely. The next morning, a floor scrubber casually cleans the blood from the sidewalk, treating it like just another stain on the street. Don't forget to subscribe. Here's some more interesting story you don't want to miss.